Arson, stone pelting, torching trains and buses. Yes, this worrying trend of protests today escalated over the Agnipath scheme. Protesters in Haryana, Bihar, UP and Secunderabad set trains on fire, vandalized buses and pelted stones as the situation took a turn for the worse. Several of these protests were openly hijacked by student wings of political parties, with NSUI activists allegedly involved in the Secunderabad blaze, and left students protesting at ITO. Anarchy, politics indeed is a worrying trend, with protesters resorting to violence for every cause. It's time peace prevails and we ensure such trends are stopped. Joining us at this point on the broadcast is a special panel. We have Major General Shashi Asthana, former Additional DG Infantry, live with us. Ved Bhushan, former ACP, joins us live. Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is live with us. Choita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, is also with us live. Major General Asthana, let me begin with you first. In a democracy, everyone has the right to protest, but the kind of arson and violence we are seeing today, is it correct? Is this the right opposition to the Agnipath scheme?
No, it is absolutely wrong for the simple reason because violence is not an answer to anything. Peaceful protest still makes some sense, but certainly not violence. And especially for the youth who are actually aspiring to becoming part of armed forces don't damage the country. As far as I am concerned, people with this ideology are actually unfit for the defense forces because we have a reasonable grievances system in the country, and I think that can be made of. Having said that, I must also say that this is basically because people have actually not understood.
Yes, General Asthana, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So actually people have not understood the scheme, and more problems are because of a large number of even, shall I say, commentators, including military officers, have actually do not have complete information and complete logic behind the scheme. Now, let me put it this way. As far as the young generation is concerned who are protesting, now my straight appeal to them is that please analyze this scheme. If you have gone into in the army as Agniveer, you get in at 17 and a half. If you are class 10, you will become class 12. If you are class 12, you will become graduation, because JNU IGNOU is allowing you to do that. When you come out, even if you don't make it to the permanent rank, you will come out at 21. The age 21 has been fixed to ensure that you are eligible for every single service in the country. There is no paramilitary force whose recruitment stops at 21. All schemes are available till 24. So now you compare yourself with your counterpart who is sitting outside. He is studying at the cost of his parents' money. When he comes out and does the job hunting, normally the job hunting is done at 21 when he has done graduation. Now compare yourself. You have gained education at the cost of the government. At the same time, when you come out, you have got 4 years of experience, you have got sufficient money, and then when you look for a job, you also have got some kind of reservations which have been announced. So how are you badly off, and where is the ground to protest? So logically, in this scheme, it doesn't make any difference. Now coming on to the other side where the criticism is going on. Now let me tell you, take the previous system when we were doing recruitment and take the present system. Now in the previous system or in the present system, the age of a normal Jawan is being brought down by about 4 to 6 years. So you will have younger army. That's one issue, one advantage. The second advantage is we will be able in 4 years, why the 4 years have been fixed, that also I'll tell you. In 4 years, we will be able to see a Jawan in one piece and one field tenure. And after that, we do the screening and we retain 25%. So therefore, we are retaining the better lot. And for the rest of the lot, he is also not losing the bus because he is still in the reckoning for all other jobs. Second thing, that when also some of the Agniveers are going to be coming from the ITIs. So therefore, a younger guy of 17 and a half, it is much easier to make him technologically enabled than a soldier of 35 years of age. So therefore, when we are looking at the complex weapon system, then we are looking at these kinds of developments to happen, and therefore he is more prone to be tech savvy. So there are many things which I'll keep answering as any apprehension comes up. But notwithstanding that, no scheme should be condemned immediately, because every scheme will have an advantage. All decisions are done under some uncertainty. So therefore, there will be apprehensions which can be taken care of. You cannot also applaud the scheme straight away without having tried it. So we will have to wait and see as to how successful it is or otherwise. But at the same time, we must objectively analyze, and we should not start reacting because of inadequate knowledge, as some of the protesters, some of the leaders who are trying to give out, and some of the commentators and some of the guys who are trying to demean any kind of initiative which is being taken. Uday.
Yes, Major Lastana, stay with us. In fact, let me also rope in Professor Madhav Nalapat at this point. Professor Madhav Nalapat, protests spiraling, taking a violent turn as well, individuals losing their life. Is this the opposition? Is this the kind of protest that we want in our healthy democracy?
Certainly violence is completely unjustified in a democracy. And secondly, I quite agree with the general that there are very many good points in this particular scheme. There could be some additions, like some tweaking of the age limits, or for example, free education beyond when you become an Agniveer, or things like that. But otherwise, it's basically a very sound scheme. Now, what is the reason? Of course, political parties will obviously be having a vested interest in trying to basically torpedo a good scheme. Now, we saw, for example, during the farm law agitation, personally, it has been my view, it remains my view, the farm laws were actually very good for the farmer. And even in a few states like Punjab, etc., where they needed some tweaking, had it been handed over to state governments, it could have been done state by state. But what happened? You had a lot of unpleasant activities, a lot of violence, including moving into Delhi. Eventually, the farm laws had to be withdrawn. You have this CAA. There's no question that minorities are being very shabbily treated in Pakistan. They're hardly there, frankly. They're about less than 2%. As far as Afghanistan is concerned, it's probably 0.2%. But it's a fact. In Bangladesh also, it's been going on. But the problem is, very frankly, that I think one needs to understand that in a democracy, you have to educate the people about a major change that is being introduced. It can't just be sprung on them one fine day and then believe that they are going to say, all right, government is doing it, so we believe in it. I mean, there may have been a period like that. It's certainly not that period now. So take, for example, CAA. The very name itself I found problematic. A Citizenship Amendment Bill. If you translate into different languages, Hindi or Urdu or Bengali or whatever, it's very easy to twist it to mean removal of citizenship. It could have been Minority Protection Bill. That's absolutely what it is, a Minority Protection Bill. And so far as the farm laws are concerned, there needed to be weeks and months of educating the public as to the reason for these farm laws. And after that, they could have been given to state governments. So those states who implemented them, benefited from them, will then show the way to the other states. But the reality is that, if you just do this at one shot, it gives an opportunity for not just opposition parties. Let's be honest, we are facing a threat from the Sino-Wahhabi lobby. It's a very active threat. It's a threat with very deep pockets. And they are looking at creating chaos and mayhem across India. Why? because the reason why the BJP is in power, it came in 2014, 2019, and they want to block it in 2024, is because of the reputation of Narendra Modi for capability and competence. The trust people have in him for providing a peaceful environment, a good economy, jobs, healthcare, etc., etc., etc. So, and Narendra Modi is also aware of the activities of these negative lobbies. So they would like to ensure that some pliant individual come and take his place. Instead of, somebody who basically is weak or who frankly will not take strong action against them, who allows this kind of activity to go on. And therefore, they will try and ensure that any such issue, which if you check social media, if you check emails on social media, if you check some of the memes, you will understand how each of these agitations have been spread through wrong messaging. Nobody will consult Shashi Asthana in that group because they know he's a professional military man without an agenda. But there are individuals who have not been adequately briefed about that. And in my view, certainly people above the rank of retired colonel should have been properly briefed on this so that you had an army of ex-service officers and men, if I may say so, separately, that could come out and defend the scheme. So I would only like to say that after the success of basically now CAA, till today, you don't have notification for CAA. Farm laws have been completely scrapped. So this is giving confidence, not only to political parties, but to certain other forces, that this could also be scrapped, because anything to do with strengthening defense, greening the army, encouraging, for example, army training in a larger number of the population. I've constantly been calling for an expansion of of the so-called NCC program, and for an expansion of 30 to 40 million youngsters should be trained in the discipline of the military and the paramilitary over 10 years or so. I've been saying that for decades. Joyita is aware of that. So the point is that this is, whenever you have a situation in which a really good change is introduced without sufficient messaging, sufficient ensuring that large groups of individuals understand the validity of the scheme, well, you're going to run this risk. And now what we saw in the farm situation, what we saw in CAA, we are now seeing on Agnipath. And the reality is that these people believe that the government will blink on this, just as they blink on the farm laws.
Absolutely. Stay with us. In fact, Professor Nalapur, let me bring in Ved Bhushan as well. Ved Bhushan, how do you react to this opposition, these protests, of course, which have spiraled out of control? And, security-wise, how should we tackle them to ensure that common citizens do not bear the brunt? Trains are being stopped, certain other damage to public property is being reported, vehicles, buses being set on fire, school students stranded and stuck in Darbhanga, as we were showing earlier, and now people losing their lives too.
Share my personal experience. एक छोटा सा कंट्री है साइप्रस, वो भी ब्रिटिशर्स के अंडर में था, गुलाम कंट्री था, जैसे हम लोग गुलाम थे। वो एक वार रिडन कंट्री है, उसमें 10+2 के बाद यदि किसी स्टूडेंट को ग्रेजुएशन करना है तो 2 इयर्स के लिए वहां की आर्मी ज्वाइन करना मैंडेटरी है, अदरवाइज यू कांट गो फॉर ग्रेजुएशन। यदि आप साइप्रस एयरपोर्ट पे उतरे, मार्केट्स में जाएं, कहीं स्ट्रीट्स पर जाएं, कहीं भी जाएं, इतना डिसिप्लिन्ड आदमी है वहां पर, आप सोच नहीं सकते इंडिया में हम बैठकर कि वो हर जगह मार्केट में दुकानदार भी है तो वो भी इतना डिसिप्लिन तरीके से, इतना वेल बिहेव तरीके से बात करेगा। और सबसे बड़ी चीज है वहां उस कंट्री को लेके प्राइड है। वहां पर इस तरह से आगजनी, हिंसा कोई सोच भी नहीं सकता, चोरी के बारे में नहीं सोच सकता कि गाड़ियां, कार चोरी हो सकती हैं। तो जिस कल्चर को वहां पर बढ़ाया दिया गया, हमारा तो बहुत बड़ा कंट्री है जो तमाम तरह के वायलेंस अक्रॉस इंडिया इस बारे में हो रहे हैं। इट्स अ शेम फॉर अस, पूरे इंडिया के लिए एक शेम की बात है। और मेरा तो यहां तक मानना है और कहना है कि इन सबको आइडेंटिफाई किया जाए और गवर्नमेंट जॉब से इनको परमानेंटली डिबार किया जाए। जिस तरह से पुलिस के ऊपर अटैक किया जा रहा है, ट्रेन्स को फूंका जा रहा है, एक एक जो बोगी है ट्रेन की 10-10 करोड़ रुपए की एक बोगी पड़ती है, कितना बड़े लेवल पर वेंडलिज्म हो रहा है। ये आई डोंट, मेरा बिल्कुल मानना है कि ये कोई देशभक्त लोग नहीं है, ना ही इस तरह के लोगों को आर्मी के अंदर या पुलिस के अंदर डिसिप्लिन फोर्स के अंदर रखा जा सकता। दे उनको आइडेंटिफाई किया जाए, उनकी पुलिस वेरिफिकेशन जब भी हो ये उसमें मेंशन किया जाए कि देवर इन्वॉल्व इन द राइट्स, और इस तरह की चीजों के अंदर उनको नौकरी के लिए कभी भी सरकारी नौकरी ना दी जाए। ये बहुत ही सीरियस ट्रेंड जो चाहे पॉलिटिकल जो हमारी क्लास है इनको बढ़ावा दे रही है, या जो दूसरे एलिमेंट्स हैं इनको प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं, इनको आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं, पीछे से पुश कर रहे हैं, इन सबको बहुत एक ऐसा स्ट्रॉन्ग मैसेज आना चाहिए कि दोबारा से इस तरह का एक प्रोटेस्ट कभी भी ना हो। ठीक है, आई एग्री कि देयर सम, अभी नालापत साहब बता रहे थे, टेक्निकलिटीज बता रहे थे, आर्मी में क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं, भर्ती में, रिक्रूटमेंट्स में, एज में, बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, दैट आई एग्री। मैं बहुत सारे उस इश्यू पर नहीं जाता, परंतु जिस तरह से लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को पूरे इंडिया के अंदर हाईजैक किया जा रहा है, हर बात के ऊपर, चाहे राहुल गांधी को ईडी पूछने के लिए बुला ले, सीए एनआरसी हो, किसान आंदोलन हो, हर तरह से पूरा हिंदुस्तान को झोंक दिया जाता है। ये बहुत गलत ट्रेंड एस्टेब्लिश हो रहा है, क्योंकि अब कंट्री का टाइम है, हम सबको आगे बढ़ना है, और हम जिस स्थिति में पहुंचने लग रहा है कि हम आगे बढ़ने के बजाय माइनस में जाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। तो ये तमाम चीजें जो अग्निपथ को लेकर कही जा रही है, बताई जा रही हैं, ये बिल्कुल मैं एग्री करता हूं नालापत साहब की बात से, वो सबको एक्सप्लेन करनी चाहिए, दे मस्ट बी वेल एक्सप्लेन। जो हमारे यूथ हैं उनको बताना चाहिए कि क्या हम इस देश के लिए कर रहे हैं और इसकी क्या अच्छाइयां, क्या खूबियां हैं, या इसके क्या डिमेरिट्स हैं। तो परंतु इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप सड़क पर आ जाएं, आप पुलिस के साथ मुठभेड़ में आ जाएं, आप लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को खराब करें, आप आगजनी करनी शुरू कर दें, तो ये कतई भी बर्दाश्त नहीं करना चाहिए सरकारों को, चाहे वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से, चाहे सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट से। इसका एक बहुत अच्छा एक मैसेज जाना चाहिए कि दोबारा इस तरह की चीजें इस समाज के अंदर ना आ पाए। तो ये एक बहुत एक बर्निंग इशू है, नाम ही इसका अग्निपथ है। जिनको अग्निपथ पे चलना चाहिए था वो देश को अग्निपथ पर डाल रहे हैं, वो देश में अग्नि लगा रहे हैं। वो क्या हमारे जो हमारे एनिमी कंट्री है वो हम उनसे क्या हिफाजत की उम्मीद कर सकते हैं? हम नहीं, मेरा तो बिल्कुल ट्रस्ट नहीं है कि ये जो यूथ्स हैं जिनको किस तरह सड़क पर आ गए हैं, ये किसी भी कोई अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं कि देशभक्ति का काम कर रहे हैं। इनको प्रॉपर एक जवाब एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन के द्वारा, जो वहां पर लोकल पुलिस है, लोकल वहां का एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, उनको टेक केयर ऑफ रखना चाहिए, उनको आइडेंटिफाई करना चाहिए, उनको तमाम जो लीगल प्रोविजंस है उसमें बुक करना चाहिए, और जो सस्पेक्ट्स हैं उनको क्लियरली मेंशन होना चाहिए जब भी वो गवर्नमेंट जॉब में जाए, ताकि एक मैसेज आए कि यदि गवर्नमेंट की किसी पॉलिसी आप डिसएग्री कर सकते हैं, पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट के लिए कोई मनाही नहीं है, वी आर लिविंग इन ए डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री। पर जिस तरह से हो रहा है ये बिल्कुल वायलेंट प्रोटेस्ट है, इसको किसी भी हालत में शांतिपूर्वक प्रदर्शन मेरी समझ में उदय बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता। बाकी नेता लोग जो उनकी अपनी पॉलिटिक्स है, चमकाने के लिए कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, पर मैं और आप उदय जो हम टैक्स पेयर्स हैं, मेरे टैक्स से जो आप लोग टैक्स देते हैं और पूरा हिंदुस्तान टैक्स देता है। आप छोटी सी एक ब्रेड खरीदने जाते हैं, 50 रुपए की एक ब्रेड खरीदते हैं, उसमें भी टैक्स इन्वॉल्व है। तो पूरे देश का पैसा है जिसको फूंका जा रहा है। मेरा पर्सनल इस बारे में बहुत जबरदस्त रिजर्वेशन है, मेरा प्रोटेस्ट है कि इनको एक अच्छा जवाब सरकारों को देना चाहिए, क्योंकि मैं और आप टैक्स पेयर हैं। हमारा नुकसान क्यों हो, हमारी रेल की ट्रेनों को क्यों आग लगाई जाए, पुलिस वालों के साथ क्यों झगड़ा किया जाए, पुलिस की गाड़ियों में क्यों आग लगाया जाए। आपने देखा कि कल भी 2 एसएचओ इंजर्ड हुए, 15 पुलिस वाले और भी इंजर्ड हुए। तो ये तमाम चीजें देश के लिए माकूल नहीं है और इनका जवाब देने का समय आ गया है और जरूर दिया जाना चाहिए। उदय,
Joyita Basu, come in here on whether these protests are ordinary civilians, are they ordinary army aspirants, or you believe they've been hijacked by political parties now? Are these political protests or are they normal protests according to you? And how do you view this opposition that has suddenly erupted to this scheme, Joyita?
Uday, when you're looking at the situation, it does look like certain vested interests have got involved, because the rapidity with which this protest suddenly spread all across the country, and it is suddenly that, several states, and directed anger against government property, railway property. This is what is something that we saw even during CAA. This is something we have seen, whenever these protests are happening, they are going and attacking. There's cases of arson and all, and they are attacking government property. Selectively, they're attacking the railways. Selectively, they're attacking railway stations. In Delhi, we have seen during the CAA protests how buses were being burnt down. So that there is a very common trend, the way these protests are being carried out. and it looks like some sort of coordination is going on somewhere. And this is where the question of law enforcement is coming in. Whether political parties are involved or not, we will know shortly. I'm certain even the NewsX reporters are on the ground. I mean, there are other newspapers and news channels also. They're also on the ground. The news is gradually coming that yes, certain political parties are also involved. Say, for example, when we are looking at the situation in Bihar, we for certain in the Sunday Guardian, we carried a piece. In fact, we did an investigative piece on how the coaching institutes of Bihar were very much, they were the ones who they operate like a mafia. They operate like a mafia over there. Now, these were the people who are behind the protests. Now, considering these protests again started from Bihar, so the question obviously will rise, is this the same mafia that is involved? And is it what kind of coordination is taking place on the ground to ensure this spreads? Now, when we are talking about the kind of profile of the people who are protesting, you see, I mean, a genuine seeker, somebody who is going into the army cannot be someone like this, cannot go around damaging property, cannot become an arsonist, because you cannot possibly have an arsonist defending your country. So the best thing right now to do is, apart from the communication part, I'm going to come to it, put the fear of God in these people, that you are going to be identified, you are going to be blacklisted, you are finished for life. Until and unless that message goes to the ground that your career is finished, you will not have a life after this. You will find a tough time even getting a 500 rupee job anywhere in the country. You know, even as a somebody who is as a tea boy in a tea stall, unless and until you put that fear of God in them, this is not going to stop. And number two is that, yes, I totally agree with the communication part. Now, this is something I feel that the current government has been failing time and again. I mean, you just plastered the whole country with advertisements, you know, glorifying this scheme. If you are serious about bringing it in, just give the positive side. You suddenly do not, you know, okay, we are told that a lot of consultations have gone on for this scheme to be out. But what about the communication part? You see, what has happened, because the communication is so bad, and this has happened with everything. If you look at this government's tenure, it has happened with each and every, if I can use the word quote unquote, revolutionary reform it has tried to bring in. I do not know as yet, you know, I myself as a journalist, as editor of a newspaper, I am getting all sorts of contradictory information, contradictory feedback about the Agnipath. So you see, that is where if I am not able to understand, is it good or is it bad, because the army, actually General Asthana is totally, completely right. The army officers are themselves completely divided on this. Okay, so I am getting to hear all sorts of things. So think of the uneducated poor guy on the street. So that is why you plaster the country with advertisements. You give advertisements on television, you promote the message, you send out, if everybody has got the internet now, you go on YouTube, you create WhatsApp messages, communication. What we are witnessing is a communication warfare. And I totally agree also with Professor Nalapat, there are other interests also involved from outside. China is waging a 24/7 political warfare with us. For all you know, God knows where the funding is coming from all these things. So that is why you have to get the communication right. Get the communication right, flood the country, and then you launch the scheme. Because otherwise, I mean, vested interests will get hold of a scheme like this. They will twist it. There will be misinformation. There will be disinformation, and the result is there for all to see.
All right, let's leave it at that. We've run completely out of time. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.